In the heart of Italy lies the region of Tuscany. Its sleepy hills are covered with vineyards, olive groves, forests, and beautiful farm buildings. Heading west from Poggibonsi, we get a glimpse of our destination, San Gimignano, the town of beautiful towers, a medieval town built in the 11th century and named after a 5th century bishop, Gimignano. There were originally some 70-odd towers, but only 13 remain today, built by rich merchants to signify wealth and store grain. They were also safe havens in time of invasion. It seems this medieval town was not always the peaceful place it is today. Most of the ancient walls and turrets that once protected the city are still intact, and the old gateways remain the only means of access. This is the main road, the Via San Giovanni, and the main gate, the Porta San Giovanni. The Porta della Fonte is so called because of its proximity to natural springs, seen here protected by a series of Romanesque and Gothic 12th century arches. San Gimignano suffered terribly from the plagues during the 14th century, and due to the huge decrease in population, virtually fell asleep for centuries. It's this sleepiness that has contributed to keeping its medieval beauty intact. Today, of course, it's a thriving tourist destination and is alive with crowds of sightseers soaking up its charm and antiquity. We take time out from St. Jim, climb into our hire car and head for the hills. Hoping to partake in the fruit of the vineyards, we stop next to the vines, but alas, our timing is a little out. We do, however, find a great place to have lunch, and the wild boar was very tasty. We also find the Tuscany wine farm and taste the local wine, which was quite friendly, but I think we're spoilt by the beauty of our winelands in the Cape.
Chianti is most like our Shiraz.
Okay. Going with this tasting thing, we pop into an olive oil farm along the way, sample the wares, and buy a bottle. On the way home we find another medieval town, Casadelsa, but it wasn't on a par with St. Jim. The old and the new. People watching is a national pastime in Italy, and not even the handicapped are deterred. The oldies sit and skinner for hours. So most evenings we sat at a sidewalk trattoria and did the same. It was of course a good excuse to have a little vino. This man, his wife and son all seem to be checking the guidebook together. Most Italian cities have their main piazza or square, and St. Jim is no different. The Piazza della Cisterna, or well, is a favourite spot to meet, dwell a while, and once again people watch. The well was built in the 13th century, and the mayor's crest at the time was this ladder. Time for a bit of exercise, so we decide to go up the Torre Grosso, 54 meters high, at the foot of which the town's death sentences were carried out. The views from the top were of course stunning. The gap between the buildings you see is the main passageway of St. Jim. Anyone for high tea? We came upon Andrea one morning, playing in the piazza. Very beautiful. St. Gimignano, sights and sounds. This was our home for a week. Top floor, 39 steps. And the view over St. Jim was spectacular. Say goodbye to your washing if you drop it. The square outside reminded me of those you see in war movies. I expected to see a German tank come round the corner any moment. The old fort was a favourite place in the evenings. Enjoy the wine, stunning sunset. St. Gimignano, a medieval dream. Siena's principal sites cluster in the maze of narrow streets around one of Europe's greatest medieval squares, the pan-shaped Piazza del Campo. The graceful Gothic town hall boasts the second highest tower in Italy. The piazza has been the focus of city life since the 13th century and was the principal marketplace for most of its history. It occupies the site of the old Roman Forum since being commissioned by the ruling body at the time, the Council of Nine. This red brick paving was laid during the 13th century, and its distinctive 9 segments depict the Council of Nine. Situated a few narrow streets away is the Duomo. Built during the 11th and 12th centuries, it's one of Italy's greatest cathedrals. A spectacular mix of paintings, sculptures, and Romanesque Gothic architecture. The doors were built in 1284, the rest of the facade a century later. Enough sightseeing for one day, we busted back to St. Jim. Florence and the River Arno. The historical Ponte Vecchio spans the Arno, and boasts some great shopping. The Botticelli originals of Primavera and Birth of Venus, painted in the 1400s, hanging in the Uffizi Gallery. The Piazza della Signori, the heart of Florence's social life for centuries. It boasts copies of various statues, including Michelangelo's David, and the Fontana di Nettimo, the Roman sea god, surrounded by water nymphs. Lunch at one of the trattorias on the square, with music supplied. The bruschetta was great. About 1,300 rand will buy you these snakeskin shoes. The incredible statue of David by Michelangelo, taken from under my armpit as no cameras were allowed. Traffic is a nightmare in Florence. It's no wonder that scooters abound. Back to San Jim by train this time. Pisa was a major port with a powerful navy until the silting up of the harbour. The Leaning Tower is actually the bell tower of the Duomo, started in 1064, and really leans rather alarmingly, as a result of being built on the marshy land common in the area. The Cinque Terre, a beautiful stretch of coast near the eastern extreme of the Riviera. With 5 villages hidden in little coastal inlets or clinging to the rocks overhanging the sea. They are a mosaic of colours and shapes, and the surrounding vines descend from near sheer cliffs, alternating with the Mediterranean vegetation. This is our village, Rio Maggiore, and our view of its most picturesque little harbour. Our balcony is one of those up there on the right. Early morning in the main and only street, and a unique use of a flower box to restrict vehicle access. The 5 villages are linked with paths and walking trails, the easiest of which is the Via Amore, seen here, linking our village, Rio Maggiore, to Manarola and Cornelia. This is Manarola. And its little harbour and beautiful pool. It really does cling to the cliffs, doesn't it? We continued along the Via Amore to the next little town, Cornelia. The sea a breathtaking colour below us. Just as well we were all in peak condition, eh? A real rabbit warren of cute little streets and trattorias. Of course, you don't have to walk between towns. You can catch the ferry. Or the train. These towns all have such picturesque little harbours. I then decided to walk over the cliffs to Monte Rosso, so took the bus on a hair-raising trip high up into the hills. Looking back, the view of Vernazza was awesome. The way forward, daunting. If only I'd taken the ferry. Monte Rosso, but still a long way off. At last. Monte Rosso is more spread out than the other towns and has good sandy beaches. I took the ferry home exhausted, but I wasn't alone. You really get stunning views from the ferry. Rio Maggiore, home sweet home. The next day we took the train up the coast to San Margherita. And bus to nearby Portofino, the most exclusive harbour and resort town in Italy. Crammed with the yachts of the wealthy. Ah, how the other half live. To end our holiday, we took the ferry to Porto Venere. The weather was great and the scenery, once again, outstanding. Have you ever wondered how some people get to the shops? The small 15th century church of San Pietro stands on a promontory below the castle guarding the entrance to the harbour. Travelling is always thirsty work, guys. Porto Venere is named after Venus herself and gave me a wonderful feeling of laid-backedness with which to end my holiday.